The cargo bay lights flickered as the alien boarding team advanced, their polished exoskeletons shimmering ominously under the dim, sterile glow. Each of the 5 pirates loomed over 7 feet tall, their chitinous armor glinting with deadly weaponry, a silent testament to their predatory intent. Their leader, a hulking brute with jagged mandibles and glowing crimson eyes, raised a clawed hand to signal silence. The alien freighter's hold was eerily quiet, save for the occasional hum of an idle reactor. This human vessel, though outwardly unassuming, carried whispers of technology far beyond its apparent class, a prize too valuable for the Voidclaw Syndicate to ignore. The pirate's translator hissed to life, its synthesized voice breaking the tense silence like a jagged shard of glass. Scan for life forms. Secure the cargo. No mistakes. The crew dispersed in a flurry of coordinated motion, each pirate activating a wrist-mounted scanner that pulsed faint blue light into the shadows. Their leader lingered, his mandibles clicking softly in anticipation. This was a routine raid. Humans were soft, predictable. Whatever resistance the crew might offer would be over before it began. Then the singing started. It was faint at first, a whimsical melody that floated from somewhere deeper within the ship. The sound seemed almost playful, teasing in its light-heartedness. It heightened the pirates' unease, their claws gripped tighter, and their eyes darted nervously at every shadow. They couldn't reconcile the melody with the suffocating tension that pressed around them. The pirates froze. Their scanners registered no signs of life beyond their own, yet the song persisted, lilting and echoing as though the very walls of the freighter had come alive. "What is that?" one of the pirates hissed, his claws tightening around his plasma rifle. "An auditory hallucination," the leader growled dismissively. "Ignore it." But as they moved forward, the melody grew louder, more intricate, weaving a tapestry of harmonies that seemed to toy with their senses. The leader's crimson eyes narrowed. He didn't believe in ghosts or superstitions, but there was something unsettling about this, something the scanners couldn't explain. He activated his comms. "Team 2, report." "Static." The leader's claws twitched. "Team 3, respond." More static. "Maintain formation," he barked. "This ship is playing tricks. Stay alert." The pirates pressed onward, their scanners sweeping the area in ever-widening arcs. The hold gave way to a narrow corridor, its walls lined with conduits and blinking status panels. The singing grew louder still, now accompanied by a faint tapping, a rhythmic, almost taunting sound that echoed from the direction of the bridge. The leader signaled his team to stop. He drew a blade-like device from his belt, its edge shimmering with a plasma charge. "Whoever you are, you've made a grave mistake," he growled. "Show yourself." The reply came in the form of laughter, low, resonant, and unmistakably human. It was a sound that sent an unfamiliar chill skittering down the pirates' spines. From around the corner stepped a figure in a grease-streaked jumpsuit, scuffed boots marking his path. His wrench dangled casually, almost mockingly, from fingers that exuded an air of calculated calm. A streak of engine grease smudged his cheek, and he adjusted his visor with a deliberate slowness that spoke volumes about his confidence. The man's face was partially obscured by a visor, but his grin was unmistakable. "Welcome aboard," he said, his voice carrying an unsettling calm. "You must be the neighbors I've been hearing so much about." The leader's mandibles clacked in annoyance. "Identify yourself, human." The man tilted his head, as if considering the question. "Name's Captain Rourke. And you lot must be the intergalactic pest control? About time somebody cleaned up this sector." A ripple of confusion passed through the pirates. This was not the terrified reaction they had expected. Rourke's nonchalant demeanor was disarming, almost mocking. The leader stepped forward, plasma blade humming ominously. "You're outnumbered and outgunned," he snarled. "Surrender now, and I might consider letting you live." Rourke's grin widened. "Outnumbered? Sure. Outgunned? Not so much." Smoke erupted from the floor vents before the leader could react, transforming the corridor into a thick, acrid haze. Shadows shifted erratically within the chaos, creating the illusion of movement everywhere at once. The pirates' advanced optics flickered and failed, their vision reduced to a chaotic blur. Panic set in as something darted between them, swift and silent. The sound of metal striking exoskeleton echoed through the smoke, followed by the sharp crackle of electrical discharges. When the smoke cleared, 2 of the pirates were on the ground, their weapons disabled and their limbs twitching from a localized EMP burst. Rourke stood at the far end of the corridor, wrench in hand and an unlit cigar clenched between his teeth. "You're not the first to underestimate a human freighter," he said. "And you won't be the last." The remaining pirates regrouped, their leader seething with rage. "Capture him," he roared. The pirates charged with a thunderous roar, plasma rifles spitting streaks of searing energy that carved glowing scars into the freighter's metallic walls. Their movements were brutal and relentless, the floor shuddering beneath their heavy, clawed feet. Rourke ducked into a side passage, the walls of the freighter seeming to close around him like a maze. The corridors were narrow, forcing the pirates to move single file, their bulky forms scraping against the walls. Every so often, the haunting melody would return, drifting from unseen speakers and amplifying their unease. Rourke's voice crackled over the ship's comm system. "You know, it's funny," he said, his tone conversational. "People always assume humans are fragile, easy targets. But we've got a saying back on Earth: never corner a rat." The pirates paused, exchanging uneasy glances. This human was no ordinary prey. He was toying with them, using the ship itself as a weapon. The leader's patience was wearing thin. He activated his own comms, issuing a terse command. "Bring the breaching charges. We'll flush him out." As the pirates prepared their explosives, Rourke watched from a hidden alcove, his grin fading into a more serious expression. He tapped a series of commands into a handheld device, bringing up a schematic of the ship. The pirates were moving closer to the engine room, a mistake they wouldn't live to regret. "Computer," he whispered. "Initiate Protocol Alios." A pleasant, artificial voice responded. "Protocol Alios engaged. Safety overrides disabled." The ship's lights dimmed, replaced by an ominous red glow. The temperature began to rise, and the faint hum of the engines grew into a thunderous roar. The pirates hesitated, their scanners malfunctioning under the sudden environmental shift. Rourke's voice resonated again, firm and commanding, carrying a weight that made even the air feel heavier. "You've got one chance to leave, Bugs. Drop your weapons and crawl back to whatever hole you came from. Otherwise, I'll show you why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The leader snarled, refusing to be intimidated. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" The ship lurched violently, sending a shudder through its framework that buckled the pirates' footing. They staggered, claws scrabbling for stability as the artificial gravity wavered, turning the once stable floor into a disorienting obstacle course of tumbling debris. Alarms blared, and the artificial gravity fluctuated, sending loose objects tumbling through the air. The leader's crimson eyes widened as he realized the human wasn't bluffing at all. This was a trap, and they had walked right into it. But retreat was not an option. Not for the Voidclaw Syndicate. Not for him. With a guttural roar, the leader rallied his remaining crew. They surged forward, determined to finish the job. But Rourke was ready. The next move was his, and he had no intention of playing fair. The cargo bay's red glow flickered faintly, sending jagged shadows crawling across the walls as the pirates regrouped. Their leader, crimson eyes blazing, surveyed the carnage with growing fury. 2 of his warriors lay disabled, twitching feebly as the EMP's residual charge coursed through their systems. For the first time in his long and brutal career, doubt began to creep into the edges of his thoughts. Humans were supposed to be weak, unprepared, predictable. But this Captain Rourke was none of those things. "Deploy the drones," the leader barked, his voice cutting through the dim. The remaining pirates snapped to action, their wrist-mounted interfaces flaring to life. With mechanical precision, they launched a swarm of sleek drones, their segmented carapaces gleaming darkly as they darted through the air with unsettling, insect-like grace. The devices hovered for a moment, then dispersed into the corridors, their optical sensors glowing with a predatory blue light. Rourke watched the drones fan out from a monitor in the engine room, his expression unreadable. The ship's AI chimed softly in his ear. "Enemy reconnaissance units detected. Current count, 25. Yeah, I see them, Rourke muttered, leaning against the console. He tapped a few keys, pulling up a schematic of the freighter. All right, let's give them a warm welcome. Activate decoy nodes B3 through D5. Patch the feeds into their visual systems. Acknowledged, the AI replied. Panels slid open throughout the ship, releasing small, spherical devices that whirred to life with a low hum, their surfaces gleaming faintly under the dim red light. They projected flickering holographic images of Rourke, each one moving with a swagger that mimicked his confidence. The decoys mimicked his movements, a confident stride here, a defiant smirk there. The drones buzzed toward the images, their predatory optics locking onto the decoys, emitting sharp, mechanical clicks as they recalibrated their sensors, desperate to identify their elusive target. As they closed in, some began to hover uncertainly, emitting faint pulses as if trying to verify the target's authenticity, while others crashed into walls in their relentless pursuit of the holograms. "He's everywhere," one pirate growled, his claws digging into the wall as he followed a decoy down a narrow passage. "This isn't possible." "Focus," the leader snapped, swiping his clawed hand through a holographic map of the ship. "The real Rourke is near the engine room. Regroup and converge there. The rest is illusion." Rourke leaned back in his chair, exhaling a slow breath. "Smart bug," he murmured. "Guess we'll have to up the ante." He toggled a switch on the console. "Computer, initiate plasma venting in corridors 12 through 14. Warning," the AI intoned. "Plasma venting may cause structural damage to nearby systems." "Better the walls than me," Rourke quipped. With a hiss, superheated plasma flooded the corridors, a wave of blue and white tearing through with unstoppable force. The temperature surged, forcing the pirates to retreat. Their chitinous armor, while durable, was not designed to withstand such extremes. The drone's optics flickered and failed, their circuitry overwhelmed by the intense heat and light. "He's burning his own ship," one of the pirates shouted, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Desperate tactics," the leader growled, though his tone betrayed a flicker of doubt. "Press on. He'll run out of tricks eventually." But Rourke's tricks were far from over. As the pirates regrouped and began to inch closer to the engine room, they encountered another obstacle, the freighter's maintenance bots. Normally used for repairs and inspections, the bots had been reprogrammed by Rourke to defend the ship. One bot leapt onto a pirate's back, its welding torch sputtering dangerously close to the alien's mandibles. Another spun its saw blade menacingly, slicing through a pirate's weapon with brutal efficiency. They skittered through the corridors on spindly legs, wielding an array of improvised weapons, welding torches, saw blades, and high-pressure lubricant sprayers. One bot lunged at a pirate, its torch igniting a plume of flame that forced the alien to stumble back. Another sprayed lubricant onto the floor, sending two pirates crashing into each other as their footing vanished. The leader's patience wore thinner with every step. "Enough of this," he bellowed, raising his plasma blade and cleaving a maintenance bot in two. "Rourke," he roared, his voice echoing through the corridors. "Face me, coward." Rourke's voice crackled over the comms, calm and infuriatingly smug. "You're awfully eager to die, big guy. But hey, if you're in such a rush, I can speed things up for you." The leader growled, his mandibles clicking furiously. But before he could issue another order, the lights flickered again, plunging the ship into near darkness. Only the faint glow of emergency strips illuminated the corridors, casting an eerie red hue over everything. The pirates' advanced optics adjusted, but the darkness brought new dangers. In the shadows, Rourke moved with the precision of a predator. He had swapped his wrench for a compact railgun, its barrel gleaming faintly in the dim light. From an elevated perch, he fired a silent, precise shot. A pirate's weapon shattered in his hands, the railgun's round striking with pinpoint accuracy. Chaos erupted as the pirates scrambled to locate the source of the attack. "He's toying with us," one of them shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Silence," the leader snapped, though his own frustration was mounting. Rourke's voice cut through the chaos again, dripping with mockery. "You know, I'm starting to feel bad for you guys. All this tech, all this muscle, and you still can't handle one little human." The taunt worked. The pirates roared in unison, their voices a guttural cacophony of frustration and defiance. Clawed feet pounded against the metal floor as they surged forward, some snarling orders to flank while others gripped their weapons tightly, their instincts clouded by anger and desperation. Rourke anticipated their aggression. As they stormed through the final corridor, he activated the last phase of his plan. "Computer," he said, a wicked grin spreading across his face. "Seal bulkheads A17 through A20. And depressurize. Warning, crew in proximity may experience lethal effects," the AI replied. "Just do it," Rourke snapped. The bulkhead doors groaned with hydraulics before slamming shut. The pirates were trapped in a confined section of the corridor, their snarls muffled by the heavy steel walls. Moments later, the air began to thin as the section was vented into space. The pirates clawed at the walls, their strength meaningless against the vacuum's pull. Only the leader remained anchored, his claws embedded deep into the metal floor. As the pressure normalized, the doors reopened, and Rourke stepped forward, railgun trained on the leader. "Told you," he said, his tone almost conversational. "Never corner a rat." The leader snarled, his mandibles flaring wide. "You'll regret this, human." Rourke smirked, his finger tightening on the trigger with deliberate ease. The railgun barked sharply, its round finding its mark with deadly precision. The leader staggered back, a guttural snarl escaping as his claws scraped against the floor. Fury and disbelief flickered in his crimson eyes, but his footing wavered, betraying his vulnerability. The railgun's round hit home, not fatal but enough to send the leader sprawling. As the alien groaned, Rourke knelt beside him. "Regret," he said, his voice low. "Not today, bug." The battle wasn't over yet, but Rourke had the upper hand. For now. The engine room buzzed with the steady hum of power conduits, its walls threaded with glowing cables that flickered like distant stars in the void. Rourke's breathing was steady but deliberate as he scanned the room for his next move. He knew the pirates weren't done yet. The leader was wounded, but not defeated. This next round would determine everything. Outside the engine room, the remaining pirates regrouped, their movements tense and deliberate. Fury simmered beneath their rigid exteriors, mandibles clicking in agitation as they exchanged terse signals. The leader's eyes burned with determination, his claws flexing rhythmically as he steeled his crew for the final assault. The leader limped forward, his mandibles twitching with barely contained fury. His claws dragged faintly against the floor, leaving shallow grooves as he barked orders in his guttural native tongue, his crimson eyes darting between his crew with a mixture of frustration and steely resolve. These humans had proven far more resourceful than expected, and Rourke was an adversary unlike any they'd faced. But the Voidclaw Syndicate didn't retreat. Not without their prize. "Seal all entry points," Rourke commanded through the ship's comm system. "Divert remaining power to the shields around this room. Let's make it a little harder for them to come knocking." The AI responded promptly, its voice calm. "Bulkheads secured. Shields at 80%. Warning, sustained assault may compromise power reserves." "Noted," Rourke muttered. He reached for his railgun, checking its charge. 1 round left. He cursed under his breath and grabbed a nearby plasma cutter as a backup. His eyes flicked to the monitor displaying the corridor outside. The pirates were already at work, attaching breaching charges to the bulkhead doors. The first explosion rocked the room, the force jolting the walls and scattering a cascade of sparks from the ceiling. The acrid scent of burning circuits filled the air, mingling with the hum of strained power conduits. Rourke's nose wrinkled at the sharp odor, a reminder of how close the systems were to failure. The shields held, but barely. Rourke tightened his grip on the plasma cutter and railgun, his knuckles whitening as a bead of sweat rolled down his temple. His breath came in measured bursts, the tension coiling in his chest as he crouched behind a stack of cargo crates. He activated the ship's intercom. "You guys just don't know when to quit, do you?" The leader's voice snarled back through the comms, dripping with venom. "Your defiance is meaningless, human. We will take what we came for. Surrender, and your death will be swift." Rourke chuckled, the sound low and unyielding. "Swift, huh? I've always been more of a slow burn kind of guy." The second explosion shattered the shields. The bulkhead doors bent inward, their reinforced frames groaning under the strain. Rourke steadied himself as the pirates began cutting through the twisted metal with their plasma tools. He activated another command on his console. "Let's see how you like this," he muttered. From hidden compartments in the corridor walls, automated turrets deployed with a sharp metallic whir, their barrels glowing ominously as they locked onto targets with a faint hum of charging energy. The pirates hesitated for a fraction of a second before the turrets unleashed a hail of energy bolts. 2 pirates fell instantly, their exoskeletons shattered. The others dove for cover, returning fire with precision. "Push forward," the leader bellowed, his voice cutting through the chaos. The remaining pirates surged ahead, their weapons blazing. The turrets held them at bay for a moment, but one by one, the pirates' coordinated assault dismantled the automated defenses. Inside the engine room, Rourke watched the turrets' feeds go dark. He exhaled slowly. "Right. Guess it's showtime." He deactivated the remaining power shields, redirecting all energy to the ship's core systems. The hum of the room grew louder, the conduits glowing brighter as power surged through them. The bulkhead doors gave way with a deafening crash. Rourke flinched at the sudden impact, his pulse quickening as the sound reverberated through the engine room. Outside, the pirates surged forward, their guttural roars mingling with the grinding of twisted metal. Smoke billowed into the engine room as the pirates stormed in, their formation tight and aggressive. Weapons were raised in perfect synchronization, their movements sharp and calculated as they scanned the room for Rourke's position, mandibles clicking with anticipation. Rourke didn't wait. He fired his last railgun round, the projectile tearing through the first pirate's chestplate with a metallic crunch. Tossing the spent weapon aside, he activated the plasma cutter, its blade igniting with a searing hiss. The pirates closed in, their leader at the forefront. Rourke ducked under a swing from a clawed arm, the plasma cutter slicing cleanly through the appendage. The alien screeched in pain, staggering back as another pirate lunged. Rourke twisted, using the pirate's momentum against him to slam the alien into a console, sparks flying on impact. "Not bad for a slow, squishy human, huh?" Rourke taunted, his grin sharp despite the sweat dripping down his brow. He spun around, narrowly avoiding a plasma blast that scorched the wall behind him. The engine room was chaos now. The cacophony of battle clashed with the acrid stench of burning metal, each sensation compounding the overwhelming disarray. The leader advanced, plasma blade in hand, his movements slower but no less dangerous. Rourke knew he couldn't take him head-on. He arced behind a cargo crate, his mind racing. The ship's core systems glowed in the center of the room, a tangled array of exposed conduits and pulsating energy fields. An idea began to form. "Computer," Rourke hissed, his voice barely audible over the din. "Prepare to overload the engine core. Set a 10-second delay." The RE's response was immediate. "Warning, core overload will result in catastrophic damage to the ship." "Yeah, I figured," Rourke said grimly. He activated the countdown and sprinted toward the core. The pirates followed, their leader roaring in fury as he realized Rourke's plan. Rourke reached the core, his plasma cutter carving through a safety panel. He ripped out a handful of conduits, exposing a searing energy flow. The room vibrated with an ominous hum as the countdown ticked closer to 0. The leader lunged, his plasma blade arcing toward Rourke's back. At the last second, Rourke twisted, the blade slicing through empty air as he drove the plasma cutter into the alien's side. The leader screamed, his massive frame collapsing to the floor. 3 seconds, the AI intoned. Rourke grabbed a fire suppression hose, blasting the remaining pirates with a torrent of freezing gas. They stumbled, disoriented, as he made his way to an emergency escape pod. 2 seconds. The pod's hatch hissed open, and Rourke dove inside, slamming the controls. 1 second. The escape pod ejected just as the engine core erupted, unleashing a wave of incandescent energy that bloomed outward like a newborn star. The blast fractured the freighter into a dazzling spray of debris, each shard glinting against the darkness of space. The freighter exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the shockwave slamming into Rourke's pod with a bone-jarring jolt. He shielded his eyes from the blinding glow, watching as fragments of his ship twisted and shimmered against the vast darkness of space, a testament to his narrow escape. Rourke's pod tumbled through the chaos, the automated systems stabilizing it moments later. He leaned back in the cramped pod, breathing heavily as he watched the remnants of his ship drift into the abyss. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Never corner a rat," he muttered, closing his eyes as the pod's autopilot plotted a course for the nearest outpost. Rourke stirred as the escape pod's life support systems hummed softly around him, a steady rhythm that contrasted sharply with the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The chaos he'd narrowly escaped played on a loop in his mind, but the hum reminded him he was alive. His body ached from the strain of battle, and his muscles protested as he shifted in the cramped seat. The remnants of the freighter glimmered faintly in the distance, scattered across the void like shards of glass reflecting a dying ember. The pod's interface flickered to life. "Proximity alert, a vessel is approaching," the RE's calm voice reported. Rourke frowned, sitting up straighter. A flicker of apprehension crossed his face as he reached for the manual controls, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. He scanned the screen for any sign of the approaching ship, the tension in his chest tightening with every second. The display resolved into the unmistakable outline of a Voidclaw Syndicate cruiser. "Great," Rourke muttered, his fingers tightening around the controls. "Can't they take a hint?" The cruiser loomed closer, its weapons systems powering up. Rourke's mind raced. The pod wasn't equipped for combat, and the chances of outrunning a Syndicate cruiser were laughable. But then, a faint signal blinked on the pod's console, a beacon from a nearby asteroid field. "Let's see if we can make this interesting," he murmured, steering the pod toward the asteroids. The field's jagged rocks grew larger on the screen, their surfaces pitted and scarred by millennia of cosmic collisions. As the pod slipped into the labyrinthine field, Rourke activated the distress beacon embedded in the escape pod. "This is Captain Rourke of the freighter Celestial Sparrow," he broadcast. "Under pursuit by hostile forces. Any friendly vessels in the vicinity, respond." The cruiser's weapons fired, streaks of energy cutting through the void. Rourke weaved the pod through the asteroids, each maneuver a calculated risk as fragments of rock shattered under the cruiser's assault. The vibrations rattled through the pod, a sharp reminder of just how close each shot came to ending his escape. The pod's hull shuddered with every near miss. "Warning, structural integrity at 70%, the AI reported. Yeah, I get it," Rourke replied through gritted teeth. He pushed the pod deeper into the field, where the cruiser's size made it harder to follow. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, a new signal crackled to life on the console. "Captain Rourke, this is the Terran Defense Fleet patrol ship Vanguard. Hold your position, we're moving in fast to intercept. Help is on the way." Relief washed over Rourke like a wave. "Copy that, Vanguard. I'll try not to get blown to pieces before you get here." Minutes later, the asteroid field lit up with flashes of energy as the Vanguard arrived, each blast illuminating the jagged rocks like a strobe. The coordinated barrage echoed through the void with a thunderous rumble, shaking debris loose as beams of light seared through the cruiser's defenses. Its sleek frame bristled with weaponry, each turret firing with pinpoint accuracy to cripple the cruiser's shields. The Syndicate ship twisted desperately, its hull buckling under the relentless assault as it scrambled to retreat. The cruiser turned its attention to the new threat, but the Syndicate's forces were no match for the Terran vessel. Precision strikes from the Vanguard's turrets tore through the cruiser's shields and hull, forcing it to retreat into the void. Rourke let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding as the Vanguard's commander hailed him. "Captain Rourke, you're clear. Transmitting coordinates for docking. Let's get you out of there." The escape pod latched onto the Vanguard's docking bay, and Rourke stepped out to a flurry of activity. Engineers and medics surrounded him, checking for injuries and examining the pod. A tall officer approached, her uniform crisp and her expression unreadable. "Captain Rourke," she said, extending a hand. "Commander Alden. We've been tracking Voidclaw Syndicate activity in this sector. Looks like you gave them a run for their credits." Rourke shook her hand, a tired grin spreading across his face. "Let's just say they won't forget this anytime soon." Commander Alden nodded, her eyes sharp. "We'll need your debrief. Anything you can tell us about their movements, tactics, and that freighter of yours could help us put a dent in their operations." "You'll get it," Rourke replied. "But first, I could use a stiff drink and about a week's worth of sleep. Alden smirked. We'll see what we can do. As Rourke was escorted to the mess hall, he allowed himself a moment to reflect. The Celestial Sparrow was gone, its fragments scattered across the void, but its sacrifice hadn't been in vain. He'd survived, outwitted the Syndicate, and lived to fight another day. Settling into a chair in the bustling mess hall, Rourke accepted a steaming mug from a passing crew member. The faint clatter of utensils and low hum of conversations grounded him, a stark contrast to the silence of the void. He exhaled slowly, letting the warmth of the mug seep into his hands, as the tension began to uncoil from his shoulders. As the warmth seeped into his hands, he reflected on the chaos he'd just survived. The Syndicate had tried to crush him, but the Celestial Sparrow's sacrifice ensured he'd escaped to fight another day. The ship had been more than metal and circuitry. It had been his home, his haven, and a reminder of humanity's resilience. Its loss stung, but it also fueled his determination to ensure its legacy wasn't in vain. He stared into the swirling liquid, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The Syndicate had underestimated him, and now they'd pay for it. Never corner a rat, he muttered under his breath, savoring the warmth of the drink and the quiet satisfaction of survival.